In the wake of significant political shifts both nationally and locally, recent developments highlight the contrasting trajectories of the Democratic and Republican parties as they gear up for the upcoming 2026 elections. As the GOP rapidly consolidates its power, especially in key battlegrounds like Ohio, Democrats find themselves grappling with a pressing need to recalibrate their strategies in light of recent defeats. The Ohio political landscape is currently dominated by early campaign activity from Republican candidates, notably the Trump-backed gubernatorial hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy. His campaign has already begun airing television ads underscoring the GOP's aggressive approach to reclaiming executive offices that could define the state's political future. In stark contrast, Ohio Democrats, still reeling from last year's losses, including the defeat of veteran U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, are struggling to organize a cohesive response. Dr. Amy Acton, a former state health director recognized for her leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic, has launched her campaign for governor, striving to build momentum and support while operating in uncharted political waters. Despite her prior fame, Acton's lack of established political clout compared to figures like Brown poses challenges as she attempts to unify a party that has faced significant setbacks. The urgency of the Republican campaign has prompted questions about the Democratic response. With only a handful of Democratic candidates emerging, including Brian Hambly for Secretary of State and Elliot Foran for Attorney General, the party's activity appears muted. Dr. J. Sherry Strachan from the University of Akron noted that the Democrats are in a period of introspection, attempting to determine how best to engage with the electorate amid rising tensions and dissatisfaction with the current administration. The internal dynamics of the Democratic Party are further complicated by speculation surrounding Sherrod Brown's potential return to politics. As he weighs his options, whether to run for governor, reclaim his Senate seat, or even consider a presidential bid, his decision will likely influence the ambitions of other Democrats in Ohio. According to Greg Beswick, a former Ohio Democratic Party executive director, the party may yet find opportunities if Trump's approval ratings decline, signaling potential openings for Democratic candidates. In the broader context, Democrats across the nation are grappling with how to effectively counter the influence of prominent Republican figures, including Donald Trump and Elon Musk, without alienating their base. The divisive question of whether to adopt a more aggressive stance or to lay low has created a palpable tension within the party. As party leaders deliberate, the lack of a unified strategy raises concerns about the Democrats' ability to capitalize on any potential vulnerabilities within the GOP. Katie Sewer, a spokesperson for the Ohio Democratic Party, expressed optimism, indicating that enthusiasm is present at grassroots organizing events across the state. Yet as the clock ticks toward the 2026 elections, time is of the essence. Contested primaries could reinvigorate the party, drawing media attention and energizing the voter base. As the political landscape continues to evolve, the upcoming months will be crucial for both parties. The Republicans are poised to leverage their momentum, while the Democrats must navigate their internal challenges and external pressures to mount a viable challenge. The outcome of this political chess game will not only determine the trajectory of Ohio's governance but could also have significant implications for national politics in the years to come. In the ever-evolving landscape of U.S. politics, a recent shift in strategy regarding foreign relations and domestic policies is causing ripples that stretch beyond American borders. As the Biden administration grapples with a tumultuous relationship with both the Republican Party and international allies, the implications of these changes are becoming increasingly evident. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's recent decision to back down from a fight against the GOP's government funding bill highlights the growing tensions within the Democratic Party as it confronts its strategy in a post-Trump world. Schumer's retreat comes at a time when Democrats are re-evaluating their approach to dealing with a resurgent Republican Party that appears to be regrouping under former President Donald Trump's influence. "We're doing what's best for the American people," Schumer stated, emphasizing the need for a united front in the face of potential government shutdowns. However, the implications of this compromise could lead to significant challenges for Democrats as they grapple with their identity and strategy leading into the next election cycle. In parallel, the Trump administration's recent foreign policy maneuvers are raising alarms among traditional allies, particularly Canada. The relationship between the U.S. and Canada, historically marked by mutual respect and economic interdependence, is being tested by Trump's aggressive tariff policies and inflammatory rhetoric. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has voiced outrage over the imposition of tariffs that threaten to escalate into a broader trade war. "Economic warfare isn't helping anybody," Trudeau remarked, reflecting the widespread sentiment in Canada that the U.S. is undermining the long-standing partnership between the two nations. The backdrop of this diplomatic strife is the ongoing war in Ukraine, which has seen the Trump administration shift toward a more favorable stance on Russia. This pivot has alarmed many within the Republican Party, who once prided themselves on their strong support for Ukraine. The recently appointed House Speaker Mike Johnson has faced scrutiny for his critiques of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, prompting accusations that the GOP is abandoning its foundational principles of supporting democracy abroad. As a former senior civil servant overseeing defense and intelligence programs during Trump's first term stated, "What is underway is not just forsaking Ukraine in favor of Russia but an acceptance of unprovoked aggression." The implications of this shift extend beyond foreign policy. They challenge the core values that define conservatism in America. As the Republican Party grapples with internal divisions, the emergence of what some are calling conservative Republicans in name-only cronyos illustrates a significant departure from the party's traditional stance on foreign affairs. This ideological rift, coupled with Trump's polarizing influence, has the potential to reshape the Republican Party's future. As Canada navigates the fallout from U.S. policies, the political landscape is shifting dramatically. Trudeau's Liberal Party, once thought to be on the verge of losing power, has seen a resurgence in support fueled by a united front against American aggression. Polls indicate that public sentiment is increasingly aligning with the government's defiance against Trump's tariffs, presenting a rare moment of solidarity among Canadians who pride themselves on their national identity. Looking ahead, the relationship between the United States and Canada, as well as the internal dynamics of the Republican Party, are at a crossroads. The potential for long-term political and economic consequences looms large, with Canadian officials contemplating a re-evaluation of their diplomatic strategy in light of Trump's erratic leadership style. As the dust settles on these unfolding events, it remains to be seen how both nations will navigate this increasingly complex geopolitical landscape and what it means for the future of democratic values both at home and abroad. The critical question remains: will the U.S. return to a path of collaboration and mutual respect with its allies, or will it continue down a road of isolationism and discord? As the political climate evolves, the stakes for both countries have never been higher. As the clock ticks toward a potential government shutdown, the U.S. Senate is gearing up for a crucial procedural vote on a Republican-backed stopgap spending bill. This measure, which aims to extend government funding for 6 months, has divided lawmakers, particularly within the Democratic Party, as they grapple with the implications of a shutdown versus passing a contentious bill that many view as unfavorable. The Senate's decision comes amid a backdrop of economic uncertainty, with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer signaling a willingness to support the funding bill despite concerns from his party's progressive faction. "I will vote to keep the government open," Schumer stated in a floor speech. He emphasized that a shutdown would empower former President Donald Trump and his allies, allowing them to dictate federal priorities and potentially undermine essential services. Clearly, this is a Hobson's choice. The CR is a bad bill. But as bad as the CR is, I believe allowing Donald Trump to take even much more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option, he added. This bill, which passed the House on a party line vote, faces significant hurdles in the Senate. It requires at least 7 Democrats to join Republicans in overcoming a 60-vote threshold to advance to a final vote, where only a simple majority is needed for passage. As of now, only one other Democrat, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, has publicly committed to supporting the measure, while some Democrats argue that the bill cedes too much power to the Trump administration. House Democrats gathered at a policy retreat in Virginia have expressed frustration with the Senate's approach. They argue for a more moderate alternative, a 30-day funding extension that would provide additional time for bipartisan negotiations on a long-term appropriations deal. This Republican-only bill is not enough, said House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar. He criticized the GOP's strategy of dismantling government functions, asserting that the recent push for a stopgap measure reflects a broader agenda to undermine federal services. The proposed legislation, while intended to avert immediate chaos, is not a traditional continuing resolution. Instead, it includes a slight increase in military spending while cutting domestic non-defense expenditures by $13 billion. Additionally, it mandates the District of Columbia revert to its fiscal year 2024 budget, resulting in over $1 billion in cuts to local services, which could severely impact schools and law enforcement. Critics, including Senator Patty Murray, have voiced concerns that the bill creates slush funds that would give the Trump administration undue flexibility in budget allocations. Senate Majority Leader John Thune defended the necessity of the bill, attributing the current predicament to a failure in last year's appropriations process, which was under Democratic control. To be clear, Republicans aren't thrilled about another CR, but it is our best option to make sure that last year's failure by Democrats doesn't interfere with this year's appropriations process, Thune stated. As the Senate prepares for what could be a pivotal vote, the outcome remains uncertain. With pressure mounting from both sides, the stakes are high, not just for lawmakers but for all Americans who rely on government services. The potential for a government shutdown looms large, and how this situation unfolds will undoubtedly shape the political landscape moving forward, particularly as the 2024 elections approach. The Senate's actions today may well determine whether the government remains open or if it faces the disruptive consequences of a shutdown. In an era where political maneuvering often overshadows fiscal responsibility, the recent actions of the U.S. House of Representatives have raised significant concerns among District of Columbia officials and residents. On March 10, Mayor Muriel Bowser, alongside other elected officials, held a press conference at the U.S. Capitol to address the repercussions of a stopgap spending bill approved by the GOP-controlled House. This measure mandates a staggering $1 billion cut to the current D.C. budget, leaving the city facing an unprecedented financial crisis. The continuing resolution CR, which has become a common legislative tool to avert government shutdowns, has taken a particularly harsh turn for the district. Traditionally, such measures allow D.C. to operate under its existing budget and utilize local revenue. However, House Republicans have opted to treat the district as a federal agency, effectively rescinding its approved FY 2025 budget and imposing significant spending cuts. This strategic move, reminiscent of notorious bank robber Willie Sutton's rationale, "That's where the money is," has left many questioning the motives behind these drastic measures. Key Senate Democrats have been vocal in their opposition, arguing that the cuts will disproportionately impact vulnerable populations in D.C. Senator Chuck Schumer's recent shift to support the House's CR has only compounded concerns, as it hints at a potential compromise that could further jeopardize the city's autonomy and financial stability. The stakes are high. Without a resolution by midnight on March 14, the federal government risks a shutdown which could exacerbate the already precarious situation. The implications of the House's actions are dire. D.C. officials warn of significant cuts to essential services, including policing, public works, and human services programs. Mayor Bowser has emphasized the need for the federal government to fulfill its responsibilities to the district, echoing sentiments from a time when federal investments were aimed at enhancing the capital rather than diminishing its resources. Dark days are coming to the district, warned Terry Lynch, a local civic leader, reflecting the fears of city residents as they face potential school closures, inadequate public safety, and disrupted basic services. Amidst these challenges, the district's financial outlook is grim. Already grappling with a $22 million revenue shortfall for FY 2025, projections indicate that budget cuts could total nearly $3 billion over the next 3 years. These figures are exacerbated by anticipated reductions in federal workforce and Medicaid funding, which are crucial for serving the city's most vulnerable residents. As one government insider aptly noted, it is a perfect storm. As the pressure mounts, the need for fiscal discipline within the district's government has also come under scrutiny. D.C. Auditor Kathy Patterson highlighted the disproportionate growth of government employees compared to the stagnant population growth, suggesting that efficiency improvements are overdue. This moment presents an opportunity for D.C. leaders to confront the financial realities they have long avoided. While the Senate has introduced legislation to exempt D.C. from the CR, its passage remains uncertain. The looming threat of a federal takeover of the city's governance creates an environment of urgency for D.C. officials to advocate for their constituents. Should the House version of the CR become law, it could be interpreted as arbitrary and capricious, prompting potential legal challenges from the city's leadership. In the midst of this turmoil, Mayor Bowser's diplomatic efforts with congressional Republicans could prove vital. Acknowledging the need for collaboration, she has garnered some support from GOP members. Yet the fragile nature of these relationships underscores the complexity of navigating the current political landscape. You can love the mayor or hate the mayor. She's still the adult in the room, remarked a political operative, emphasizing the delicate balance Bowser must maintain. As the deadline for resolution approaches, the outcome remains uncertain. The decisions made in the coming days will not only determine the immediate fate of the district's budget but will also set a precedent for how Congress treats D.C. in the future. Faced with significant cuts and a potential loss of home rule, the city stands at a crossroads. Will its leaders acquiesce to federal demands? Or will they rise to the challenge and advocate for the rights of their constituents? The coming weeks will be critical as the Senate deliberates and the implications of the House's actions unfold. The future of the district hinges on the ability of its leaders to navigate these turbulent waters and secure a path toward fiscal stability and self-governance. In a significant moment for American immigration policy, former President Donald Trump has taken his contentious battle over birthright citizenship to the U.S. Supreme Court. This move comes as the Trump administration seeks to overturn long-standing interpretations of the 14th Amendment, which grants citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil. The implications of this legal showdown could reshape the landscape of American citizenship and immigration for generations to come. As the legal proceedings unfold, it is critical to understand the constitutional underpinnings of birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment states unequivocally that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. However, the Trump administration has argued that this provision can be interpreted in a manner that could limit birthright citizenship, particularly concerning children born to undocumented immigrants. Recently, a federal appeals court affirmed lower court rulings that rejected Trump's proposed policies aimed at curbing birthright citizenship, leading to the current appeal before the Supreme Court. Can you explain what SCOTUS can do about birthright citizenship when it's in the Constitution? Asked Peggy Getch from Pittsburgh, a question that strikes at the heart of this legal debate. While the Supreme Court cannot directly overturn a constitutional amendment, it possesses the power to interpret the Constitution in ways that could effectively alter its application. Trump's request to the Supreme Court seeks to halt the enforcement of lower court rulings that have blocked his administration's policies. Legal experts suggest that the court's response to this procedural challenge may provide insight into how it might rule on the substantive issues of birthright citizenship. If the Supreme Court were to rule against the long-held interpretation of the 14th Amendment, it could create a precedent that undermines the foundational principles of American citizenship. In a related development, the Michigan Supreme Court has selected a new Chief Justice, Megan Kavanaugh, in a move that coincides with the impending retirement of Elizabeth Clement. The unanimous decision by the court emphasizes a commitment to a smooth transition and continuity within the judiciary. Kavanaugh, who has served on the court since 2018, stated, "The court decided to make the choice now to ensure that the transition will be as smooth as possible and to confirm that our commitment to the path the court is on will not waver." Kavanaugh's elevation to Chief Justice allows Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer the opportunity to appoint a new justice, potentially solidifying a 6-1 Democratic majority in the court. This shift reflects a broader trend in Michigan's judicial landscape where justices are technically nonpartisan but often carry party-backed affiliations. Clement, appointed by former Republican Governor Rick Snyder, is leaving to lead the National Center for State Courts, marking a significant shift in leadership. As the legal landscape continues to evolve, the outcomes of these cases will likely have far-reaching consequences. The Supreme Court's decisions on birthright citizenship could redefine what it means to be a citizen in the United States, affecting millions who rely on the protections afforded by the 14th Amendment. Similarly, the changes in Michigan's Supreme Court leadership may influence future state policies and judicial interpretations. Looking ahead, the intersection of these two significant judicial developments underscores the dynamic and often contentious nature of American law and governance. As the Supreme Court prepares to hear arguments on birthright citizenship, the nation watches closely, aware that the ramifications of these rulings may extend well beyond the courtroom. The evolving narrative of citizenship in America is poised for a crucial chapter, one that could dictate the rights and identities of future generations.